Hi, good evening, and welcome back to today's Roznama, the daily newspaper analysis. Without further ado, let's make a start. So, a very important piece of legal news today. There is a Supreme Court 9-judge bench hearing taking place. This is something which is very rare. Till date in Indian history, less than 20 Supreme Court judgments have been given by a 9-judge bench. What I want you to remember is that any bench of the Supreme Court, which is 5 or more judges, is known as a constitution bench. Okay, so 5-judge bench, 7, 9, 6, anything in between, all of those benches will be known as constitution benches. So let's do the others as well. What is a division bench? A bench which has 2 judges. What is a full bench? A full bench is a bench which has 3 judges. What is a constitution bench? Any bench which has 5 or more judges sitting on it. Okay, so what is this 9-judge bench case that is being heard today on the 17th and tomorrow on the 18th? So the case involves the definition of the word industry, okay, which is of course relevant for labor laws, for the Industrial Disputes Act, and for the recently enacted labor codes. So all of this is being considered by the 9-judge bench. They are reconsidering the old definition given almost 50 years ago in a judgment by Justice Krishna Iyer in the BWSSB case. Okay, so that is what is happening. Once this judgment comes out, it's going to be very important for legal reasoning. That's why I'm flagging it for you. For GK, you need to know the names of different strengths of benches. So as I said, division, full, and constitution benches. This year, there are going to be 2 9-judge bench decisions. So in the month of March, on 17th and 18th, the hearing is on the definition of the word industry. And in the month of April is that expansive and highly significant case, which is the review petition on Sabrimala. So as you know, in the Sabrimala case, the Supreme Court had originally ordered that the Sabrimala temple must be open to all, both men and women, right? And why did this come about? Because the Sabrimala temple has a rule that women of menstruating age cannot enter that temple. So in review, a large number of consequential questions were framed on the interplay between fundamental rights and religious freedom. So those questions will be heard by a 9-judge bench in April. Right now in March, we have the 9-judge bench on the definition of the word industry. Okay, moving forward, we have the customary news stories from the war initiated by the US and Israel on Iran, and which has expanded to consume the entire West Asian or Middle Eastern or Gulf region. Okay, so this is an editorial and opinion piece from today's newspaper written by Shubhajit Roy, who writes on issues of international affairs and geopolitics. So he has mentioned 5 different points. I wanted to flag who is referred to as BB, which world leader. BB refers to Benjamin Netanyahu. Okay, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. Okay, so this is significant and important. Okay, moving forward, another article in today's newspaper by Suhasini Haider saying neighborhood diplomacy and its West Asia challenge. First of all, I wanted to clarify and flag for you, West Asia is the same region that is described as the Middle East. Okay, so do not be confused by this. Whenever an article mentions West Asia or Middle East, they are referring to the same thing. Now, what is the neighborhood diplomacy and challenge described by Suhasini Haider in this piece? She states issues like all of India's neighbors, most of them have condemned the assassination of the second supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Okay, and India, of course, has not clearly condemned the assassination. India has expressed its condolences. What has complicated things is the visit of our Prime Minister to Israel, barely 40 hours before the US and Israel attacked Iran. Okay, all right. Moving forward, one of the biggest economic flashpoints of this entire war has become the Strait of Hormuz. As you all know, a strait is a narrow stretch of water which connects two larger bodies of water. Now, when we speak about the Strait of Hormuz, it is very significant. Why? Because a lot of the oil supply of the world moves through the Strait of Hormuz. When we talk about countries like Iran, Kuwait, Oman, etc., all of the Gulf nations, they are dependent on the Strait of Hormuz for the flow of oil from their countries to the rest of the world. Okay, so recently, just a few days back, Donald Trump called upon the leaders of the world, especially in Europe, to join in to help secure the Strait of Hormuz. He asked for those countries to support the flow of oil tankers with military force. Okay, and what has been the result? The result has been that most countries have essentially said no. Okay, he had called upon all of these allies of the US, and you can see the reactions. The Prime Minister of UK said that they will not be drawn into a wider war. The German government said this war has nothing to do with NATO. It is not NATO's war. The Italian government said that Italy is not at war with anyone. So all of the allies of the United States, including its close NATO allies, have basically refused to get drawn in. It is a war being prosecuted by Israel and the United States. There may have been tacit support by some of the Gulf countries and tacit support by some of the US's NATO allies. But none of those allies in NATO or in Europe are willing to come forward and join in the campaign militarily. Okay, so here they mention that the European Union and the United Nations are discussing initiatives in order to open the Strait of Hormuz. When they mention initiatives here, they do not mean military initiatives, they mean diplomatic initiatives. Okay, so I hope this is absolutely clear. Now, if I take you to this, now this is where the Indian connection is important. As you all know, India is heavily dependent on the Strait of Hormuz for shipments, most importantly of LNG or liquefied natural gas and LPG or liquefied petroleum gas, as well as for oil otherwise. Okay, so India is heavily dependent on imports for all of these things, on natural gas as well as oil. Because of the blockade or the closure of the Strait of Hormuz at the insistence of Iran, in response to the US and Israeli attack on it, a lot of the shipments in India got blocked or delayed. There are more than 20 Indian flag ships or India-bound ships which were currently stuck on the other side of the Strait of Hormuz, unable to get out and come towards India. This led to a huge panic in terms of the possible shortage of liquefied petroleum gas or LPG. So what has happened now is that 3 different Indian flagged ships which were coming to India carrying LPG, etc., have been allowed to go through the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, this is very significant. You can see the names of these first 3 ships which have been allowed to cross the Strait of Hormuz. They are Shivalik, Nanda Devi, and Jag Ladki. Okay, Shivalik, Nanda Devi, and Jag Ladki. Okay, so please keep that in mind. These are the first ships with an Indian flag headed towards India, carrying supply of LPG as well as oil, which have been permitted by Iran to cross the Strait of Hormuz, and they have been escorted to India with Indian naval warships. Okay, all right. So this news piece is also about the same thing. All right. Moving forward, our Ministry of External Affairs has stated that it is not that India and Iran have reached some deal in a blanket fashion that all Indian ships will be allowed. Rather, through conversations, through diplomacy, these three have been allowed. There may be more which may be permitted. This statement simply indicates that there is no blanket deal with Iran to allow all Indian flag ships. Right now, 3 ships, India flag and headed to India, they have been permitted, and 1 ship which is India flag and headed to Africa. These are the 4 which have been permitted in total. Okay. Moving forward, now this is something that relates to the deal reached between the United States and India regarding tariffs. Now, what complicated things is that the US Supreme Court ruled that the tariffs imposed by Donald Trump were illegal and unconstitutional under IEEPA or IEEPA. Okay. Now, that has, of course, forced the rethink. India was on the verge of actually signing the deal. The announcement had been made, the signing was left. Then the US Supreme Court struck down Trump's tariffs. And ultimately, it's led to a delay in the signing of the deal. And right now, it is stuck in limbo. India is indicating that we will stick to the deal. But there have to be assurances by the United States that India will get a good tariff structure and a comparative advantage in comparison to other countries. Okay, so there is no finality on the India-US tariff deal as of now. As you saw, the US in the last few days has launched several investigations against India under the Trade Act. One which relates to forced labor and the other on other trade issues. Okay, so the India-US tariff relationship has not really been settled yet. It was complicated by the US Supreme Court ruling Trump's tariffs unconstitutional. Trump, of course, responded with imposing tariffs under another act, a different legal authority. And so the saga goes on. Now, something very interesting and important from the perspective of both GK as well as the legal sections. As you all know, in the latest Clat in 2026, the consortium not only asked legal reasoning, but also legal knowledge, right? Asking you background static details or current details about legal issues, okay? Such as number 1 about the constitution and number 2 about one nation, one election and other related issues. Now, this is one such topic which is important this year as well, and that is the issue of UCC. Now, what is the UCC? It is the Uniform Civil Code. Now, does India as a whole have a uniform civil code? The answer is no. Even before we gained independence, one state had a uniform civil code, that is Goa. Goa had the Portuguese civil code, which was uniform for most of the population. So that was the first ever state to have a UCC ever in India. The first state after independence to implement a uniform civil code was the state of Uttarakhand. And now it appears that Gujarat is on the verge of becoming the second state after independence to create a uniform civil code. Okay, before we launch into the details, you have to remember the article which imposes a duty on the state to try to create a uniform civil code. And that article is Article 44. Okay, it is part of the directive principles of state policy in part 4 of the Constitution. Okay, now when it comes to Gujarat, there was an expert committee which had been appointed to give its recommendations on UCC and to submit a draft law which could be enacted. And who was the chair of this committee? Importantly, it was retired judge of the Supreme Court, Ranjana Prakash Desai. Now, you may have heard her name. She currently chairs the UCC Drafting Committee of the state of Gujarat. Before this, she headed the UCC Drafting Committee of the state of Uttarakhand. She is currently also chairing the 8th Central Pay Commission. She is also currently chairing the Delimitation Commission of India. Okay, so there are these 4 bodies which are being chaired by Justice Ranjana Prakash Desai. Till recently, she was also the chair of the Press Council of India, though her term there has now gotten over. So currently, what does she head? UCC Drafting Committee of Gujarat, number 1. Number 2, the Delimitation Commission of India. And number 3, the 8th Central Pay Commission. Previously, she also headed the Press Council of India, as well as, what was the last one? Can you say it down in the comments? So let me recap it for you. UCC committees of Uttarakhand and Gujarat, Press Council of India, earlier Delimitation Commission of India, current, and finally the 8th Central Pay Commission. Okay, so I hope this is crystal clear. So this report is set to be submitted today. We will of course see more details about the same in tomorrow's newspaper. But this is going to be a significant topic, not only for legal reasoning, but also GK and current affairs. Moving forward, it's an article today by Yogendra Yadav in the Indian Express, talking about the notice given by the opposition members in order to introduce a motion to remove the Chief Election Commission. He argues that even though it is symbolic, it matters, that it is important. Okay, we have discussed this in detail over the past days. This is the first time in Indian constitutional history that notice has been given of a motion to remove the Chief Election Commission. As you know, the Election Commission of India is created by Article 324. One of the clauses states that the way to remove the Chief Election Commissioner is the same as the way to remove the Supreme Court judges. Now, what is that process? In each house independently, a motion has to be passed by 2/3 majority of those who are present and voting, and by simple majority of the total membership of that house. What are the grounds for removal? Proved misbehavior and incapacity. Who is the current Chief Election Commissioner? It is Gyanesh Kumar. Okay, so those are some of the important facts. We have covered the rest in detail over the last few days. We've also given legal reasoning questions and GK questions on this topic over the last week or so in the Roznama. As you all know, that is our daily feature on clatpossible.com, where you can log in simply with your email address or mobile number, and you get questions on the same day's editorials each and every day. We call it your daily mini Clat. Okay, so now let's move on to our next topic. A very interesting article today in the Indian Express titled "When the Weapon Becomes the Shield," written by Saptarshi Basa. Now here, what is he talking about? He is talking about nuclear weapons. Okay. Now I wanted to discuss this article simply to mention 2 important phrases. One is the word nuclear deterrence. Okay, what is the idea of this word? The idea is that when a country possesses nuclear weapons, the fact of possession itself deters other countries from attacking or interfering in the affairs of that country. Okay, that is the idea of nuclear deterrence. A related word is MAD, M-A-D, which stands for mutually assured destruction. This is the idea that when we talk about the relations between any 2 powers or countries or states, if both of them have nuclear weapons, it is unlikely that they will let their relations deteriorate to such a degree that they are engaged in open war. Why? Because of the fear of mutually assured destruction. The idea that if one of them launches a nuclear weapon at the other, it is likely to suffer the same fate. So these are two important words about the security strategy behind nuclear weapons. The word nuclear deterrence and the word MAD, or mutually assured destruction. Okay, so I hope these words are crystal clear. Moving forward, an important article which came up a few days back, which has been explained in today's Indian Express, relating to NAVIC. Now, what is NAVIC? NAVIC stands for Navigation with Indian Constellation. Now, this was India's attempt to create a sort of GPS, which was indigenous as well as regional. Okay, so NAVIC, or Navigation with Indian Constellation, is India's equivalent of the US's GPS, or the Russian equivalent of GLONASS. Okay, so you can see the title here as well, a GPS for India. Right? The word GPS has become so common that we forget it's the specific name of the US owned and designed global positioning system or navigation system. Actually, you might be surprised to learn that the GPS, the global positioning system, is administered by the US Space Force, which is a military wing of their armed forces. Okay. Now, the other word associated with NAVIC is IRNSS, which stands for the Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System. The Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System. So, both of these are somewhat synonymous. The IRNSS is operationally known as NAVIC, or Navigation with Indian Constellation. Now, as you can see in this image, this only works if there is a certain minimum number of satellites which are circling the Earth, or which are positioned over the Earth, in order to make this navigation system work. Recently, the atomic clock on one of India's IRNSS satellites failed. Now, to run NAVIC, India needed 4 functional satellites. After the loss of this one, it led to a situation where India only had 3 functional satellites. So as of now, NAVIC is dysfunctional. Okay, there have been many challenges with this program, and many of the satellites under this system have resulted in partial or complete failures. Okay, so I just wanted to flag it with you. You do need to know the full forms. You can also check out the details of this in yesterday's top 5 news stories, which can be found on the Roznama. Okay, all right. Moving forward, we've discussed this over the last few days, a somber event. This editorial by the Hindu, of course, talks about the recent judgment of the Supreme Court in Harish Rana versus Union of India, where they operationalized the earlier Common Cause versus Union of India judgment, which held that the right to life under Article 21 includes the right both to live and die with dignity. Okay, so it talks about a dignified end. And in this case, the Supreme Court permitted the family and parents of Harish Rana to remove the artificial nutrition and hydration to ease his suffering in his own best interest. Okay, so an important opinion by the Hindu editorial board. Now, the next 2 articles, the next 2 slides relate to Ladakh. As you know, Sonam Wangchuk, the inspiration behind the character of Phunsukh Wangdu in 3 Idiots, Sonam Wangchuk was recently released by the government. He had actually been put in preventive detention by the union government, effectively operating through the union territory of Ladakh. Okay. Now, you might remember that when Article 370 was abrogated or made dysfunctional relating to Jammu and Kashmir, the union government had removed J&K as a state and divided it into two union territories. One, the union territory of Jammu and Kashmir, the other, the union territory of Ladakh. Neither of them were given the status of states. In fact, Jammu and Kashmir used to be a state, and the government had assured the Supreme Court that it would restore Jammu and Kashmir as a state as soon as possible. That has, of course, not happened yet. In the case of Ladakh, there have now been demands and there has been an agitation asking for two things. Number one, make Ladakh a state. Number two, grant it 6th schedule status. So in the midst of that protest or agitation, Sonam Wangchuk was put in preventive detention. He was just recently released a few days back. Okay. And just yesterday, there was also a huge protest in Ladakh, in different parts of Ladakh, demanding both of those things: statehood, which you can see here, as well as 6th schedule status. All right. So I just wanted to flag that for you, and let's see what the developments are on this front in the coming days. Now, this week, and I mean the last few days, seems to be the time that a lot of different organizations have decided to release their literary awards. Okay, just a couple of days back, the winner of the 60th Jnanapith Award was announced. That was Vera Muthu for the Tamil language. Now, just yesterday, the Sahitya Academy Awards have also been released. Okay, now what do you need to remember about the Sahitya Academy Award? Do not worry. Since they give an award for each of the languages, there are 24 winners. And so you need not remember any of them. Okay? What you do need to remember is which languages is this award given for. It is given for 24 languages. 22 from the 8th schedule of the Constitution, and the remaining 2 being English and Rajasthan. Okay, so the Sahitya Academy Award is given for 24 languages to 24 different authors. Which organization gives the award? It is the Sahitya Academy, which is considered India's National Academy of Letters. In fact, interestingly, its first president was also Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India. Right now, the president of the Sahitya Academy is Mr. Madhav Kaushik. Okay, so the awards that have been announced have been for the year 2025. Okay, so for this, the background details are more important. Winner is less important. For the Jnanapith Award, the winner has more significance and importance. Okay, moving forward, a news item in sports. So India, in the span of a few weeks, has had both the 93rd Grandmaster in chess and the 94th. Okay, so who was the 93rd Grandmaster? His name is Arav Bengla. And what is covered in the newspaper today is the 94th Grandmaster and the first Grandmaster from the northeastern states. His name is Mayank Chakrabarti. All right. So 93rd Grandmaster Arav Bengla, 94th Mayank Chakrabarti. All right. As you know, Clat 2026, which just happened in December, had one whole passage on the sport of chess, and 6 different questions were asked. A few of them were current questions, things which happened through the year, and 2 or 3 of those questions were static beat. All right. So this is significant. Please remember, the important sporting events have to be done through the year. So chess, cricket, football, tennis, these at least cannot be left out, in addition to the Olympics, Commonwealth Games, and Asian. Commonwealth and Asian Games become more important when they happen in India, but the Olympics are always significant. Okay. Moving forward, the last details about the winners of the Oscars or the Academy Awards given by the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences in the United States, right? So which movie won Best Picture? It was One Battle After Another. Okay, One Battle After Another. Who won Best Actor? It was Michael Jordan for the movie Sinners. Who won Best Actress? It was Jessie Buckley for Hamnet. And who won Best Director? Paul Thomas Anderson for One Battle After Another. Okay, so these are some of the most important ones which you must keep in mind. As you might know, there is a category for the best international feature film, and the entry which India made for this category was Homebound, though it was not able to reach the final shortlist. Okay, so those are the important details about the Oscars or the Academy Awards. Okay, all right. So that's all for today. I wanted to flag all of these things for you. Updates about the war, updates about some important awards, that is Oscars and the Sahitya Academy Awards, sport updates relating to the 94th Chess Grandmaster. We also saw some legal updates, a very rare 9-judge constitution bench, which is taking up the issue of the definition of the word industry. We also saw details about the UCC report for Gujarat being submitted by the Ranjana Prakash Desai committee. Okay, so that's all for today. Stay tuned. Remember to log in a couple of hours to practice today's questions on the Roznama. We update them daily. We base them on the editorials and articles written in the newspaper each and every day. It is our labor of love for you. So I hope you are making use of it. It was nice to see all of you this evening. Good night and goodbye.